I flew to visit my son unannounced, but he said, "Who invited you?" "Leave." I silently left and did something that by morning my phone had 72 missed calls. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 32 years, I thought I knew what it meant to be a mother. I raised my son Michael in a small house in Detroit, worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for his college, and never missed a single one of his baseball games. When he moved to Atlanta for his job in tech, I was proud. When he married Charlotte 3 years ago, I welcomed her with open arms. When my 2 grandchildren were born, Mia, now 5, and baby Liam, just 18 months, I thought my life was complete. I visited them twice a year, always calling weeks in advance, always bringing gifts, always careful not to overstep. Charlotte seemed pleasant enough, though there was something in her smile that never quite reached her eyes. But I told myself I was imagining things. After all, she was young, busy with 2 small children, and Michael seemed happy. The last time I'd seen my grandchildren was 6 months ago. 6 months. Charlotte always had excuses when I suggested visiting. The kids were sick. They were renovating. They had family coming from her side. I tried video calls, but those became shorter and shorter. Always cut off with some urgent reason. Mia's having a tantrum. Liam's nap time. We're just heading out. Something felt wrong. That feeling, that mother's intuition that wakes you at 3 a.m., it wouldn't let me rest. So, I did something I'd never done before. I booked a flight to Atlanta without telling anyone. I wanted to surprise them. Yes, but more than that, I needed to see with my own eyes that everything was okay. Was I overreacting? Maybe. But what kind of grandmother goes 6 months without holding her grandchildren? I arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, took an Uber straight from the airport to their house in the suburbs, a beautiful craftsman-style home with a manicured lawn and a swing set in the backyard. My heart was pounding as I walked up those steps, my small suitcase in hand. I could hear children's laughter inside, and it made me smile for the first time in months. I rang the doorbell. The laughter stopped. I heard footsteps. Then Michael's voice muffled through the door. "Did you order something?" Charlotte's response was too quiet to hear. Then the door opened. Michael stood there in a t-shirt and jeans, and the expression on his face wasn't surprise. It was anger. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to visit," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I wanted to surprise you and the kids. I've missed you all so much." "Who invited you?" His voice was cold, flat. Behind him, I could see Mia peeking around the corner, her little face curious. Charlotte appeared, pulling Mia back, her expression unreadable. "Michael, I don't need an invitation to see my own grandchildren. You can't just show up without calling." He didn't move from the doorway, didn't step aside to let me in. "This isn't a good time." "When is it a good time?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "I've been trying to visit for months. We've been busy." Charlotte's voice came from behind him, sweet but firm. "Michael, tell her we'll call her when things settle down." I looked at my son whom I'd raised alone after his father left, whom I'd sacrificed everything for, and I saw a stranger. "Mom." He stepped forward, forcing me to step back. "Go home. We'll talk later." "But I flew all the way here. I didn't ask you to do that. Go back to Detroit." And then the words that would echo in my mind for days. "Who invited you? Just leave." He closed the door, not slammed it. That would have been too emotional. He simply calmly closed it in my face. I stood there on that perfect suburban porch, my suitcase at my feet, birds chirping in the trees. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly alone. My hands were shaking. My chest felt hollow. I didn't knock again. I didn't cry. I picked up my suitcase, walked back down those steps, and called another Uber. But I didn't go to the airport. Not yet. I checked into a Holiday Inn 3 miles away, and I sat on the edge of that generic hotel bed staring at my phone. Something was very, very wrong, and I was going to find out what. The next morning, my phone showed 72 missed calls. 72 missed calls. All from Michael. I stared at my phone screen in the dim hotel room, watching it buzz and light up again. Call number 73. I didn't answer. The voicemail started around 11 p.m. the previous night and continued until 6 a.m. I played the first one. Michael's voice was panicked, not concerned. Panicked. Mom, where are you? Call me back immediately. Charlotte's worried sick. I played the second. This isn't funny. You need to tell us where you're staying. The fifth. Mom, we're sorry about earlier. Come back. The kids want to see you. The 20th. Charlotte's voice this time. Syrupy, sweet. Carol, honey. We overreacted. Michael's just been stressed with work. Please call us back. We want to make it right. I listened to 10 more, then stopped. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one expressed concern for my safety or well-being. Every single message was about their worry, their stress, their need to know where I was. Why did they care so suddenly? Yesterday, I was an uninvited burden. Today, I was a crisis. I opened my laptop and did what any grandmother in 2025 would do. I started researching. I typed in grandparent rights denied access to grandchildren parental alienation. The results made my blood run cold. Page after page of stories, just like mine. Grandparents cut off without explanation, manipulated by daughters-in-law or sons-in-law. Gaslit into thinking they were the problem. One term kept appearing: grandparent alienation. I found a forum, Alienated Grandparents Unite, and spent 3 hours reading stories that mirrored my own. The pattern was always the same. Gradual isolation, excuses, then complete cutoff. And always there was someone orchestrating it. Someone who saw the grandparent as a threat to their control. Charlotte. I thought back over the past 2 years, how Charlotte always positioned herself between me and Michael during conversations. How she'd answer questions I directed at him. How she'd cut our video calls short, always with Mia or Liam conveniently acting up the moment I appeared on screen. How Michael's text had become shorter, more formal, less like my son. My phone rang again. Michael. I silenced it. I needed evidence. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before I made my next move. I couldn't just be the hysterical mother-in-law making accusations. I needed facts. I pulled out a notebook. Yes, a physical notebook. Because I wasn't going to leave digital evidence they could somehow access. And I began documenting everything. Dates, times, conversations, text messages. I scrolled back through 2 years of messages with Michael and Charlotte, screenshotting everything, noting the pattern of increasing distance. January 2025, weekly video calls. June 2025, bi-weekly, often canceled. November 2025, monthly, always cut short. March 2025, last video call. Mia asked, "Grandma, when are you coming?" Charlotte's hand appeared on screen, covering the camera. Mia, go play. April-October 2025. Excuses. Always excuses. My phone buzzed with a text. Michael. Mom, you're scaring us. At least let us know you're safe. I typed back. I'm fine. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. I blocked his number. The silence that followed was liberating and terrifying in equal measure. I spent the next 2 days in that hotel room, barely eating, building my case like I was preparing for trial because maybe I would be. I found a law firm in Atlanta specializing in grandparent rights. Gentry Law Firm. I read every article they'd published, every case study. Georgia State had grandparent visitation laws. I had rights. Not many, but some. On day 3, I did something that felt both empowering and heartbreaking. I created a new email address one Michael and Charlotte didn't know, and I reached out to Michael's college roommate, Dan, who'd stayed in touch with me over the years. I kept it vague. Have you noticed anything different about Michael lately? His response came within an hour. Honestly, yeah, he's changed since he married Charlotte. Stopped hanging out with us. She doesn't like his old friends, apparently. Why? Just curious. I wrote back. Thanks. Another piece of the puzzle. I looked at myself in the hotel mirror. My hair was gray now. My face lined with 63 years of life, but my eyes were sharp. I'd survived an abusive marriage, raised a son alone, worked myself to the bone for decades. I wasn't going to let some controlling woman erase me from my grandchildren's lives. I picked up my phone and called Gentry Law Firm. I need to schedule a consultation, I said when the receptionist answered. It's regarding grandparent visitation rights. Of course, she said warmly. Can I get your name? Carol Henderson. And this is urgent. The offices of Gentry Law Firm occupied the 14th floor of a glass building in downtown Atlanta. I arrived 15 minutes early for my consultation, wearing my best blazer, the one I bought for Michael's wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jennifer Gentry turned out to be a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. She gestured to a chair across from her desk, which was covered in case files and legal books. Tell me everything, she said simply. I did. I showed her my documentation. 2 years of increasingly distant contact, the sudden cutoffs, the hostile reception at their door, the 72 panicked calls the moment I became unavailable to them. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to be direct with you. Georgia State law does allow for grandparent visitation, but the bar is high. You'll need to prove that you had a substantial relationship with your grandchildren, and that visitation serves their best interests. I was there when Mia was born, I said. I stayed with them for 2 weeks, helping Charlotte recover. I was at every birthday party until they stopped inviting me. I have photos, videos. That's good. Very good. Jennifer opened a folder. Here's what concerns me about your case, and what might actually work in your favor. The sudden escalation going from regular grandmother to persona non grata, then their panic when you establish independence. That suggests control, not concern. What do we do? First, we send a formal letter requesting regular visitation, specific days, times. We keep it reasonable. If they refuse, we file a petition with the court. But Mrs. Henderson, she leaned forward. This will get ugly. They will fight back. Charlotte will likely paint you as unstable, intrusive. Are you prepared for that? I thought of Mia's face peeking around the corner, the way she'd whispered, "Grandma," before Charlotte pulled her away. Yes, then let's begin. The letter was sent via certified mail 3 days later. I remained in Atlanta, moving from the holiday into a modest extended stay hotel. I wasn't going home until this was resolved. 2 days after the letter was delivered, my new email account received a message from an unknown address. The subject line, "We need to talk." It was from Michael, but not from his usual email. He must have gotten my new address from Dan. Or maybe he'd simply guessed variations until one worked. "Mom, I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to stop. Charlotte is devastated. You're tearing our family apart. If you want to see the kids, all you have to do is apologize and come over like a normal person. This legal threat is insane. Are you having some kind of breakdown?" I read it 3 times. Each sentence was a masterclass in manipulation. You're tearing the family apart. You need to apologize. You're insane. I forwarded it to Jennifer without responding. Her reply came quickly. Perfect. Save everything. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I allowed myself to cry, not from sadness, but from clarity. My son was lost to me, at least for now. Charlotte had done her work well, but my grandchildren weren't lost. Not yet. My phone rang from a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Carol." Charlotte's voice no longer sweet. "I think we need to have a conversation, woman to woman. I have nothing to say to you. You're making a mistake. Michael doesn't want you in our lives. He told me you were always overbearing, always critical. He's relieved you're finally out of the picture, but I'm willing to let you see the kids occasionally on our terms. If you drop this ridiculous legal action," my hand tightened on the phone. "If Michael truly felt that way, he wouldn't need you to speak for him. Charlotte, you isolated him from his friends. You've isolated him from me, and now you're using my grandchildren as leverage. But here's what you don't understand, Charlotte. I'm not some obstacle you can remove. I'm their grandmother, and I have rights." "Rights?" She laughed sharp and brittle. "You're a bitter old woman who can't accept that she's not needed anymore. We'll see what the court says about your rights." She hung up. I immediately called Jennifer's emergency line and recounted the conversation word for word. "She showed her hand," Jennifer said with satisfaction. "She's scared." "Good. Now comes the hard part. Gathering evidence of your prior relationship. Do you have witnesses? People who saw you with the children?" "Yes," I said, my mind racing. "Yes, I do." The next morning, I began making calls. Michael's old neighbors in Detroit, who'd seen me babysit when Michael and Charlotte visited, the nurses at the hospital where I used to work, who'd met Mia when she was a baby, Dan, who'd been at Liam's baptism, and witnessed Charlotte pulling me aside to criticize how I was holding the baby. Each conversation revealed another piece of the pattern, another instance of Charlotte's control, another witness to the grandmother I'd been before I was erased. By the end of the week, Jennifer had 12 affidavits from people willing to testify about my relationship with my grandchildren and the sudden unexplained cutoff. "Mrs. Henderson," Jennifer said during our follow-up meeting, "I think we have a case, a strong one, but you need to prepare yourself. When we file this petition, they're going to escalate. Charlotte will fight dirty." I looked at the stack of affidavit on her desk, physical proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the grandmother I'd been. "Let her try," I said. The petition for grandparent visitation was filed on a gray Monday morning. Jennifer called me from the courthouse steps. "It's done. They'll be served within 48 hours. I sat in my hotel room, hands trembling, and waited for the explosion. It came at 7:32 p.m. on Tuesday. My hotel room phone rang. They'd found me. I don't know how, but they had. I picked up, and Michael's voice erupted through the speaker, unrecognizable in its fury. "What the hell is wrong with you? Do you understand what you've done? We have to hire a lawyer now. Do you know what these costs? Do you know how humiliating this is, Michael?" I tried to talk. He cut me off. "No, you don't get to talk. You're suing us. You're actually suing your own family for the right to see children who have two perfectly good parents. Do you realize how insane that sounds?" Behind him, I could hear Charlotte crying loudly, performatively. "I wouldn't have to petition the court if you'd simply let me be a grandmother," I said, keeping my voice steady. 6 months, Michael. You kept my grandchildren from me for 6 months. "Because you're controlling," he said. "Because you criticize Charlotte constantly, because every time you visit, you undermine our parenting." "When have I ever?" I replied. "You told Mia that 3 hours of screen time was too much. You told Charlotte she was feeding Liam the wrong formula. You questioned our discipline methods every single visit." I closed my eyes. None of this was true, but he believed it was, or he'd been convinced it was. Michael, has Charlotte ever let you talk to me alone? Even once in the past year? Silence. That's what I thought. You're poisoning my wife against me now. His voice rose to a shout. Mom, stay away from us. Drop this lawsuit, or I swear to God you'll never see these kids again. Court order or not, I'll make sure. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I called Jennifer. They're threatening me, I said. Michael just called and said, don't tell me over the phone. Write down everything he said word for word right now while it's fresh. Time, date, duration of call, witnesses, if any. This is evidence, Carol. I wrote it all down, my handwriting barely legible. The next day, a letter arrived at the hotel. Someone had slipped it under my door. It was from Charlotte, handwritten on expensive stationery. Carol, I'm writing to you as a mother. One mother to another. I know you think I've turned Michael against you, but that's not true. He made his own choice to create distance because your behavior has been harmful to our family. I've tried to be patient to give you chances, but you continue to overstep boundaries. However, I'm willing to offer you a compromise. Drop this lawsuit and we'll arrange supervised visits once every 2 months for 2 hours at our home. You'll see the children, they'll see you, and we can all move forward. But you must drop the legal action first. You must trust us. If you continue down this path, you're forcing us to reveal things about your past that might damage your case. Things Michael has shared with me in confidence. Things about your mental state, your drinking, your behavior when he was growing up. I don't want to do this, Carol, but you're leaving us no choice. Think carefully about what matters more, your pride or your grandchildren. Charlotte, I read it twice, my vision. Blurring with rage, mental state, drinking. None of it was true. I'd had wine at dinner like any normal person. I'd never had a mental health crisis. But that didn't matter. She was building a narrative, creating ammunition. I photographed the letter from every angle and sent it to Jennifer. Her response: she's desperate. This is actually good for us. She's threatening you, Carol. Keep it safe. That night, I received a series of text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Photos of me entering my hotel. Photos of me at a coffee shop. A message: we know where you are. I called hotel security, then the police. A board officer took my statement and said there wasn't much they could do unless I was directly threatened. I showed him the photos. Ma'am, you're in public places. Anyone could take these. It's intimidation. File for a protective order if you feel unsafe. After he left, I sat on my hotel bed and realized I was in over my head. This wasn't just a custody dispute. Charlotte was waging psychological warfare, and Michael was her willing soldier. My phone rang. Jennifer, Carol, I need you to take a few days and breathe. We have time before the hearing. Go somewhere. They can't find you. Visit a friend. Do something normal. You can't sustain this level of stress. That night, I wrote a letter to Mia and Liam, not to send now, but to keep until they were older. I wrote about the day Mia was born, how I'd held her tiny hand, about Liam's first smile, about how much I loved them, how I'd never stopped trying to be part of their lives. I sealed it in an envelope and put it in my safe deposit box. Evidence, or maybe just hope. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I wore a simple sweater and jeans. Nothing that looked like I was trying too hard. I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and chose a table by the window where I could see Michael approaching. He walked in at 10:02, looking thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Relief? Guilt before he composed himself. "Hi, Mom." "Mike, we ordered coffee. Neither of us wanted turnovers." Michael wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, not drinking, just holding it like an anchor. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop buzzed with Monday morning energy, laptops clicking, espresso machine hissing, but our table felt suspended in silence. "I miss you," he said finally. "I miss the way things were." "Then why did you close the door in my face?" He flinched. "I was stressed. Charlotte had just told me her mother was coming to visit. Her mom's been sick. And then you showed up without warning, and I snapped. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." It sounded rehearsed. Not quite genuine, but not quite fake either. Like he'd convinced himself it was true. "Michael, I've been trying to visit for 6 months. 6 months of excuses. We've been busy. The kids are a handful. Work is insane. Has Charlotte told you what I supposedly did wrong? The criticism she claims I made?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw everything. "She said you told her she wasn't feeding Liam right, that you undermined her discipline with Mia, that you made her feel inadequate as a mother." "When? Give me specific examples." "She told me about several times." "When, Michael?" "What dates? What exact words did I use?" His composure cracked slightly. "I don't remember specifics, Mom. I just know she was hurt." "You don't remember? Because it didn't happen. Charlotte has convinced you of things that aren't real. Don't." His voice hardened. "Don't make this about her. This is about you refusing to respect boundaries. You can't just show up unannounced. I'm your mother, not a stranger, and those are my grandchildren. There are children, mine and Charlotte's, and if we decide we need space. 6 months isn't space, Michael." He set down his coffee cup too hard, liquid sloshing onto the saucer. "Why can't you just apologize and move on? Why does everything have to be a battle with you? Apologize for what exactly? For this lawsuit? For humiliating us?" For he stopped himself, took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer, more controlled. "Look, Mom, I came here to offer you a way out. Charlotte doesn't want to fight you in court. I don't want that either. We'll arrange regular visits every other month, maybe once a month if things go well. Supervised at first, just until everyone's comfortable, but you have to drop the lawsuit today." There it was. The real reason for this meeting. "Who supervises?" I asked. "Charlotte." "Well, yes. She is their mother. So I get to see my grandchildren under the watchful eye of the woman who's been keeping them from me, who will report every word I say. Every hug I give is evidence of my overstepping boundaries. You're being paranoid. Am I? Michael, answer me honestly. When's the last time you talked to Dan?" He blinked, thrown by the change of subject. "What does Dan have to do with when?" "I don't know. A year ago, maybe longer. And your college friends, your neighbors from Ohio, anyone from your life before Charlotte. People drift apart, Mom. That's normal. Everyone all at once. Or did Charlotte have opinions about them? Too? About how they were bad influences or immature or didn't understand your new life?" His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know what isolation looks like. I lived it with your father before I finally left him. And I see it happening to you now. Don't you dare compare Charlotte to Dad." He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several customers glanced over. "That's disgusting. Dad was abusive. Charlotte loves me. She's protected me from your constant criticism. What criticism? Give me one example. He stood there, mouth opening and closing, unable to produce a single concrete memory. The realization flickered across his face just for a second that maybe he couldn't because they didn't exist. Then Charlotte walked into the coffee shop. I watched her scan the room, spot us, and approach with perfectly performed concern on her face. Michael, honey, you forgot your phone at home. I thought you might need it. She handed it to him, then looked at me with those cold eyes masked in warmth. Carol, what a surprise to see you here. She'd been waiting, probably parked outside, watching. This wasn't Michael reaching out. It was a coordinated ambush. We were just talking about dropping the lawsuit. Michael said quickly, like a child caught doing something wrong. Oh, were you? Charlotte slid into the chair next to him, uninvited. That's wonderful news, Carol. I think that's very mature of you. We really do want what's best for everyone, especially the children. All this legal drama isn't good for them. They can feel the tension. You know, Mia's been having nightmares. Mia is having nightmares because her grandmother disappeared from her life without explanation. I said evenly. Charlotte's smile tightened. Or because her grandmother is causing unnecessary stress for her parents. Children pick up on these things. If you really love them, you'd stop this. If you really loved them, you'd let them have a relationship with their grandmother. We've offered you a compromise under your control, your supervision, your terms. That's not a relationship. That's a hostage situation. Charlotte's mask slipped just for a moment. Her voice dropped. Sweet veneer gone. You arrogant, bitter woman. You had your chance to be a mother. You don't get to hijack mine. Michael is my husband. Those are my children. And this is my family. You are a visitor at best. And right now, you're not even that. Michael put his hand on her arm. Charlotte, let's not. No. She stood up. She needs to hear this. Carol, you can play victim in court all you want. You can gather your little affidavit from people who barely know us. But when the judge hears about your controlling behavior, your manipulation, your refusal to respect boundaries, you'll lose. And then you'll have nothing. No grandchildren, no son, nothing. She pulled Michael up by his arm. We're leaving. Think about our offer. Carol, you have until Wednesday to drop the suit. After that, it's war. They walked out, Charlotte's hand tight on Michael's elbow, guiding him like he was a child. I sat there alone with 2 cooling cups of coffee, my hand steady, my mind clear. Let it be war. Then the hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late November in a family court that smelled of old wood and anxiety. I arrived with Jennifer at 8:45 a.m. wearing a navy dress and the pearl necklace Michael had given me for my 60th birthday before Charlotte. Michael and Charlotte sat on the opposite side of the courtroom with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who radiated confidence. Charlotte wore a soft pink cardigan and minimal makeup, calculated innocence. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. Judge Diane Reeves entered at 90 sharp. She was in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every family lie there was. This is a petition for grandparent visitation rights. She began, looking over her reading glasses at both parties. Mrs. Henderson, you're alleging that you've been denied access to your grandchildren without reasonable cause. Mr. Henderson, you're opposing this petition. Let's begin. Jennifer stood. Your Honor will demonstrate that Mrs. Henderson had a substantial loving relationship with her grandchildren for the first years of their lives, and that this relationship was systematically terminated without justification. We have 12 witnesses prepared to testify to Mrs. Henderson's character and her bond with these children. Charlotte's attorney, Ms. Chun, stood next. Your Honor, the respondents will show that Mrs. Henderson has repeatedly violated boundaries made the mother feel inadequate, and created tension in the home. The parents have every right to limit contact with anyone who disrupts their family dynamics, including a grandmother. The first witness was Ruth from my support group. She testified about seeing me with Mia at a park 3 years ago, how patient I'd been teaching her to swing, how naturally I'd interacted with her. Ms. Chun cross-examined. Ms. Gentry, you met Mrs. Henderson once 3 years ago at a park. That hardly qualifies you to judge her current relationship with these children, does it? I know love when I see it, Ruth said firmly, and I saw it that day. Dan testified next. He described the Michael he'd known in college, outgoing, social, connected, and the isolated man he'd become. Charlotte doesn't like him having friends she doesn't approve of, he said. She's cut him off from everyone who knew him before her. Objection, Miss Chin said sharply. The witness is speculating about my client's motivations. Sustained. Judge Reeves said, stick to facts, Mr. Rivera. Fact, Michael used to call me every week. After he married Charlotte, the call stopped. Fact, I invited him to my wedding last year. Charlotte RSVP'd, no without telling him about the invitation. I know because he mentioned wanting to see me at a time that overlapped with my wedding weekend. The judge made a note. Jennifer called me to the stand. I testified about the births of my grandchildren, the time I'd spent with them, the sudden erosion of contact, the door closed in my face, the 72 calls that revealed their panic when I became independent. Mrs. Henderson, Jennifer asked, did you ever criticize Charlotte's parenting? No, I offered to help when asked. I never undermined her decisions. Did you show up unannounced frequently? That was the first and only time. I called weeks in advance for every other visit. Then Ms. Chin approached for cross-examination. Mrs. Henderson, you admit you showed up at their home without warning. Correct, yes. And your son told you to leave, yes. But instead of respecting his wishes, you stayed in Atlanta, hired an attorney, and initiated legal action against your own family. I stayed because something was wrong. A mother knows. A mother knows. Miss Chen's voice dripped with condescension. Or a controlling woman can't accept that she's no longer the center of her son's life. Objection, Jennifer said. Argumentative. Withdrawn. Miss Chen smiled. Mrs. Henderson, have you ever had treatment for anxiety or depression? My stomach dropped. I saw a therapist after my divorce 30 years ago. That's not yes or no, please. Yes, but. And you occasionally drink wine, correct. Socially, yes, like millions of people. How much would you say you drink in a week? Objection. Jennifer was on her feet. This line of questioning is irrelevant and prejudicial. Your Honor, it goes to Mrs. Henderson's stability, Miss Chen argued. I'll allow it, but tread carefully. Counselor, the judge warned. I have a glass of wine with dinner maybe twice a week. I said, clearly, I've never had a drinking problem, but you were treated for mental health issues. Counseling after a divorce isn't a mental health issue. It's called being human. No further questions. Then Charlotte took the stand, and I watched her perform. She spoke softly, dabbed her eyes with tissue, describing me as overwhelming and critical. She claimed I'd told her she was feeding Liam wrong, a complete fabrication. I tried to be patient, Charlotte said, her voice breaking. But Carol made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Every visit became a source of anxiety. I dread seeing her car pull up. Michael noticed how stressed I was. Jennifer approached for cross-examination. Mrs. Charlotte, you say Carol was critical. Can you provide specific examples, dates, exact words? Well, she had a tone. A tone? Can you describe this tone? It was judgmental, but no specific words you can recall. It was 2 years ago. I don't remember exact. You remember feeling judged, but you can't remember what was actually said. Charlotte's composure cracked slightly. She knows what she did. Mrs. Charlotte, you called your mother-in-law 72 times the night she didn't return home. Why? I was worried about her safety. Were you? Or were you worried about losing control? Objection. Sustained. Rephrase, Miss Gentry. Mrs. Charlotte, if you were genuinely concerned for Carol's safety, why didn't you call the police? Silence. Why didn't you file a missing persons report? We thought she'd come back. You thought she'd come back, or you expected her to come back. Because there's a difference between concern and control. Charlotte's face flushed red. She's a manipulative woman who can't accept that Michael chose me, she said. Chose you, or was isolated into depending on only you, said Jennifer. Objection. Your Honor, counsel is badgering. Overruled. Answer the question, Mrs. Charlotte. Her mask shattered completely. Michael doesn't need anyone else. I'm enough for him. His mother was controlling his whole life, and I freed him. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. The courtroom went silent. Judge Reeves looked up from her notes. You freed him from his mother? Charlotte recovered quickly, but the damage was done. That's not what I meant. I think that's exactly what you meant, the judge said quietly. Judge Reeves removed her glasses and set them on the bench with deliberate slowness. The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. I've presided over family court for 17 years. She began, her voice calm but cutting. I've seen good parents, bad parents, and everything in between. I've seen legitimate concerns about grandparent interference. And I've seen what's happening here. Parental alienation disguised as boundary setting. Charlotte's face went white. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mrs. Charlotte Henderson, your testimony revealed more than you intended. Your statement that you freed your husband from his mother is not the language of healthy boundaries. It's the language of isolation, combined with evidence that your husband has lost contact with friends, former colleagues, and now his mother, all relationships that predate you. A concerning pattern emerges. Your Honor, that's not. Miss Chen started to stand. I'm not finished, counselor. The judge's tone silenced her immediately. Mr. Michael Henderson, I watched you throughout these proceedings. You barely looked at your mother. When your wife spoke about freeing you, you didn't contradict her. You didn't defend your mother against accusations that witnesses have thoroughly disputed. Why is that? Michael opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Charlotte, even now seeking permission. Because he can't, I said quietly from my seat. Jennifer touched my arm in warning, but the judge heard me. Mrs. Carol Henderson, do you have something to add? May I, Your Honor? Briefly, I stood, my legs surprisingly steady. My son was raised to think for himself, to question, to stand up for what's right. The man sitting across from me doesn't do any of those things anymore. He checks with his wife before speaking. He's lost touch with everyone who knew him before her. That's not a husband respecting his wife. That's a hostage situation. That's offensive. Charlotte burst out. You're calling me an abuser because I won't let you control our lives. Controlling your lives would be showing up every day, making demands, inserting myself into every decision. I said, my voice steady. I did none of those things. I asked to visit my grandchildren. That's not control. That's love. You're manipulating this court. Enough. Judge Reeves's gavel cracked against the bench. Mrs. Charlotte, sit down now. Charlotte sat, her face red with rage. The judge turned to Michael. Mr. Henderson, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer without looking at your wife. Can you do that? Michael nodded, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Before you married Charlotte, how often did you speak to your mother? We talked every week, sometimes twice a week. And now it's been 6 months. Whose choice was that? Michael's eyes darted toward Charlotte, stopped himself. We decided together. Did you? Or did Charlotte decide and you agreed? There was silence. Mr. Henderson, I'm going to be blunt. You're a grown man, a father, and you can't answer a simple question without checking your wife's reaction. That concerns me deeply. Not because I think your wife is a monster. I don't. But because this dynamic is unhealthy for you, for your children, and certainly for your mother, who loves you. Michael's face crumpled. For the first time since the hearing began, I saw my son, the real Michael, the one buried under years of manipulation, surface briefly in his eyes. Your Honor, Jennifer said, standing. We're not asking for unsupervised access. We're not asking for overnight visits. We're simply asking that Mrs. Henderson be allowed to be a grandmother. 2 supervised visits a month, for hours each, in a neutral location. That's all. Judge Reeves looked at her notes for a long moment. Then she looked at Charlotte and Michael. Here is my ruling. Mrs. Carol Henderson is granted visitation rights with her grandchildren, Mia and Liam Henderson, effective immediately. Visits will occur twice per month, 6 hours each visit, at a location mutually agreed upon. For the first 3 months, a court-appointed supervisor will be present. Not Mrs. Charlotte, but a neutral third party. After 3 months, we'll reassess. Your Honor, we object, Miss Chin began. Your objection is noted and overruled. Furthermore, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, you are ordered to participate in family counseling. All of you, including Mrs. Carol Henderson, if she's willing, because this family is broken and these children deserve better. She turned to me. Mrs. Carol, I'm granting your petition, but I'm also warning you. Don't use this access to undermine the parents. Don't badmouth Charlotte to those children. Don't try to rescue your son. You visit. You love those kids. And you let them see that grandmothers don't disappear without reason. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. As for you two, she looked at Michael and Charlotte. You will comply with this order. Any attempt to interfere with Mrs. Henderson's visitation will result in sanctions, possibly including contempt charges. This is not optional. These children have a right to know their grandmother. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. Charlotte grabbed her purse and stormed out, Miss Chun hurrying after her. Michael sat frozen for a moment, then slowly stood. As he passed my row, he paused. Mom, he whispered, just that. Then Charlotte's voice from the hallway. Michael, let's go. And he was gone. But he'd said it, Mom. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder. You won. I watched my son disappear through the courtroom doors, and I wondered what I'd actually won. Access to my grandchildren. Yes, but my son was still lost. I won a battle, I said quietly. The war's not over. Maybe not, Jennifer said, but you got the most important thing, a chance. And sometimes that's enough. The first supervised visit was scheduled for the following Saturday. The supervised visits began at a community center with a playground and toys. Rosa, the court-appointed supervisor, gave me a reassuring smile. Take your time. They might be shy at first. When Michael's car pulled up, Charlotte remained in the driver's seat, staring ahead. Michael unbuckled the kids. Mia walked slowly, holding Liam's hand. Grandma! Mia's face lit up, then dimmed as she glanced back at the car. Even at 5, she knew she needed permission to be happy. Hi, sweetheart. I've missed you so much. Mommy said you were sick. Are you better now? Sick, of course. I'm all better. And I brought something. I pulled out the children's book about grandmothers we used to read together. Mia's eyes went wide. Our book for 6 hours we played. Swings, block towers, stories. Liam eventually climbed into my lap, his small, warm weight feeling like coming home. Mia talked nonstop about kindergarten, friends, her new bike. When Michael picked them up, Mia ran to him. "Daddy, Grandma's not sick anymore." Michael looked at me over her head. "Thank you," he mouthed. It was a start. Rosa reported I was appropriate, loving, and respectful. After 3 months, supervision ended. After 6 months, I had monthly overnight visits at my new Atlanta apartment, a small 2-bedroom near Green Lake. Mia's room had butterfly wallpaper. Liam's had trucks. They loved grandmother's house, where rules were kind and love didn't come with conditions. Meanwhile, Michael and Charlotte's marriage crumbled. The court-ordered counseling revealed Charlotte's control over every aspect of Michael's life. The therapist documented significant patterns of isolation and emotional manipulation. Michael started staying after pickups, coffee, then dinner, then real conversations. I didn't see it. He told me, "One evening she said she was protecting me from your toxicity." I believed her because it was easier than questioning everything. You can find yourself again. He filed for divorce 4 months later. Charlotte fought viciously with the same tactics, allegations, manipulation. But the court knew her pattern now. Michael got primary custody. Charlotte got supervised visitation. Exactly what she tried to force on me. My life transformed. Weekly visits with my grandchildren. Mia drew pictures of Grandma's house with butterflies. Liam's first full sentence. "Gamma, I love you." Michael rebuilt himself, reconnected with friends, joined a basketball league, started therapy, played guitar again. On Mia's birthday, we had a party at my apartment. Michael, the kids, Dan, Ruth, Margaret. Small, chaotic, perfect. Watching Mia blow out candles, Michael's arm around her, Liam on my lap, I realized I hadn't just won access to my grandchildren. I'd won back my son. Piece by piece, we were rebuilding what Charlotte had nearly destroyed. Charlotte moved across the country, cut off from her children more thoroughly than she'd ever cut me off. She emails, occasionally blaming everyone but herself. I don't wish her ill. I wish her self-awareness. But that's not my battle anymore. My battle is over. I won. Here's what I learned. Love doesn't quit. Even when doors close in your face, even when your own child turns against you, even when everyone says you're fighting a losing battle, you don't stop fighting for the people you love. Manipulation thrives in silence. Isolation is the abuser's best weapon. If someone is slowly cutting you off from everyone who loves you, that's not protection. That's control. And to those who think grandparents have no rights, you're wrong. We have voices. We have courts. We have love that doesn't expire. What would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away, kept fighting? Tell me in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, family isn't about who has power. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves unconditionally. Thank you for listening to my story. Never give up on the people you love. Never.